Germany is full of great tuners, and to stand out in such competitive market means that you are a true master, and one of these master of tuning is Carlson. Being a bit younger compared to the other tuners, Carlson has created some of the craziest Mercedes out there. So hello guys and welcome back to another video, and here is the story of Carlson, and here are 7 of the craziest works. The story of Carlson begins with another very famous German tuner, with Hartge. In 1971, the Hartge brothers, Herbert and Rolf, would open a small BMW shop in the town of Merzig, near the French border. But quickly they started tuning BMWs and started selling different packages. Differently from Alpina, they had a style which was more similar with AMG, since they would use the big BMW engines for the small cars. In the late 70s, the Hartke brothers created a racing team as a way to promote their cars, and the driver of the team was the Swedish driver Ingvar Carlsson. And they managed to win some races together, but Carlson decided to leave and started racing for Mercedes. Meanwhile, the younger brother of Rolf and Herbert, Andres, was showing interest about the tuning world. But differently from his brother, Andres liked Mercedes more than the Beamers. With backing from Rolf and Herbert, Andres tuned a W124 completely with Hartge parts. The craziest part about this car is the engine, since it used a 3.5-liter BMW Straight 6, the same engine that the M5 E21 used. This engine produced 330 horsepower, something that made the Hartge Mercedes one of the fastest 124s of the time. Andres saw potential on tuning Mercedes and wanted to continue with this. But first he had to come up with a name for his new tuning company, because Herbert didn't let him to use the Hartge name. And would be in 1989 when Andres would meet Ingvar Carlsson, which agreed to help him with his new company, and so the company was named Carlson. The first car introduced by them was the Carlson C35, which was based on the E300. The 90s, like most of the Mercedes tuners, would be the golden era of Carlson. The new engines and models introduced from Stuttgart allowed all the tuners to create all sorts of crazy cars. The 140 and the 129 were some of the most preferred cars, and came in a number of different engines and body kits. Also in the 90s, Carlson built a car for Group A racing. This was a W201 with a 3.5-liter engine, something that produced more than 275 horsepower. In 1993, Carlson released their first wheels, replacing this way the Hartge-looking wheels that Carlson had used until then. These wheels would prove very popular among customers. In the 2000s, Carlson started using superchargers instead of increasing the displacement like they had did in the 90s. But the crazy projects started showing less and less. In 2012, Carlson was acquired by a Chinese dealer. And now here are 7 of the craziest Carlsons. Now there have been Toyotas, Saabs and Citroens tuned by Carlson, but nothing really special. Even though I like the Carlson 9000, but I'm not include any of those cars here. Lots of tuners did some wild creations with the original CLK, and Carlson was no exception from this. The CLK RS was one of the versions that they offered. The car was based on the CLK 430. Carlson raised the capacity to 6 liter, creating an engine which they called it CM60, which they used in many of their cars back then. The engine produced 405 horsepower and 425 pound-foot of torque, helping the CLK RS to reach a top speed of over 290 km per hour and to accelerate from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. Also, Carlson stripped down the interior and instead placed a roll cage. This was something that they did in many cars back then. like you are going to see later. Sadly, I couldn't find any videos about the CLK RS, so instead I'm playing this CL video which uses the same engine.
Également sur la rigidité du châssis. Carlson a doté son CL d'une suspension électronique abaissant la hauteur de caisse à 30 mm pour garantir un meilleur centre de gravité. Malgré ses 1,8 tonne, ses passages en courbe restent impressionnants, km/h en vitesse de pointe et seulement 5 secondes 2 pour effectuer le 0 à 100 km/h. Malgré son poids, c'est aussi rapide qu'une Porsche 911 Carrera. Seule fausse note à cet ensemble parfait, le coût. 300 000 francs, ce n'est pas le prix de la voiture, simplement le prix de la préparation, car le CL M60 de chez Carlson se vend à plus d'1 million de francs pièce, ça laisse rêveur.
Carlson continued the RS line with a second-gen CLK. The new CLK RS was based on the CLK 55 AMG. Like Brabus, Carlson started using AMG engines after AMG was acquired by Mercedes. This time the engine capacity stayed the same. Instead, they decided to pack it with a supercharger. This supercharger gave the RS 110 more horsepower. Also, a aero kit was part of the package, with a crazy rear wing. The top speed was at over 300 km per hour, while the acceleration time at 4.3 seconds.
480 PS und 650 Newtonmeter Drehmoment. Kompressor sei Dank.
Sadly, because Carlson was founded in 1989, we never got to see a 1000 SAL by them. Would have been very interesting to see their take on the W126 craze. But in the 90s they made sure to not miss anything from the W140 action. They had some of the simplest body kits on the market, but they looked pretty good on the 140, especially with Carlson wheels. Sadly, their 140s weren't as popular as the 140s from the other tuners like AMG, Brabus or even Karat by Ducatelet, despite the fact that they had one of the largest versions of the M120. The C74 had a capacity of 7,414 cc's. Only Rentec offered a larger version of the M120 with a special 7.6 liter version, which was used on a R129. Carlson also offered a 7 liter version of the M120 known as the C70, with a capacity of 6,980 cc. But this engine was even more popular with the R129, which also was available with the LM version of the 7.4 liter engine. The capacity was the same, but the engine produced 480 horsepower now. But Carlson also used this engine on a CLK. Now it's unknown if this was a car built for a special order or if it was just a promotional piece. But no matter what, this is one of the craziest Carlson creations, if not the craziest. Sadly, I couldn't find much information about the R170, so I decided to go with the 171. The Carlson SLK was based on the SLK 55, so the car uses the same engine as the CLK RS. The SLK 55 AMG Black Series had 400 horsepower, while the Carlson one 480 horsepower. This gives a simple idea how crazy this car was. Also, Carlson built a number of racing SLKs. The craziest one is based on a 3rd gen SLK. The power comes from a 3.4 liter V8, which produces 602 horsepower. This is a crazy power when you consider that the car weighed only 780 kilos. While most of the previous racing SLKs were built for track racing, this was built for hill climbing. In 2007, Carlson partnered with the fashion company Eitner Eigner, and they created two cars, the CK65 RS Blanchemont, based on the S-Class, and the CK65 Ewa Rouge. Both cars were crazy in every single way. Ultra-wide body kit, ultra-luxurious interior, and crazy power. The body kit isn't as extreme as the one offered by most of the other tuners. Eigner had done an amazing job with the interior, with selecting the finest wood and leather. Now the name CK65 gives it away that the cars were based on the 65 AMGs. Carlson had reworked the engine and had packed it with a pair of new turbos, creating this way a 700 horsepower monster. But also a 750 horsepower version was available for more money. The top speed was at 320 km per hour, while the acceleration time at 3.9 seconds. A total of 20 65s were built, 10 for each version. The CRS is the craziest Carlson RS in my opinion, and probably my favorite Carlson. Carlson had used the C32 AMG as a base, but they had increased the power output to 395 horsepower from the 354 that the AMG produced. But the true party piece of this car is definitely the interior. Like with the previous RSs, Carlson had stripped down the interior and instead had placed 4 carbon fiber bucket seats and also a roll cage. The top speed was at 300 km per hour, while the acceleration time at 4.8 seconds. But the craziest Carlson definitely is the C25. I remember when I saw this car for the first time and I was trying to figure out what car it was, since the body kit on this car is just so wild. Now the car is based on the SL65, but like Brabus, Carlson also removed the folding hardtop for weight savings. The engine produces 750 horsepower and 850 pound-foot of torque. The top speed is at over 350 km per hour, while the acceleration time at 3.7 seconds. Carlson only built 25 of these cars. That's why the car was called C25. The starting price was at 430,000 euros. So guys, thank you for watching, see you next time.